All right, welcome back to episode 5 of the In Our Headspace podcast. And this is an exciting moment because we are now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, which means people can search us and follow us on there. And the biggest thing is so that you guys can listen without having to have data or having YouTube open, or like I heard from like 3 different people that like it'd be nice to have it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts because they usually listen to podcasts on a commute, or
they could lock their phone and put it in their pocket.
Yeah, or they're on a walk or on a bike ride or something like that, where now they can just listen to it without having to have data or internet access or just having their phone unlocked and draining their battery. So we made it happen. So I wanted to wait. I technically could have done it last episode, but I wanted to wait until a quote unquote milestone episode of episode 5. But yeah, so if you're listening on YouTube and you'd rather not listen on YouTube right now, you can go ahead and switch if you really want to.
I assume it'll be in the description.
Yes. Right. So Spotify and Apple Podcasts will now be in the description. You just click the link. But if you prefer YouTube, stick to YouTube, do whatever. If you feel like supporting us, it would be helpful if you subscribe to us on YouTube and on one of the other 2 platforms, just because like, I don't know, it helps reach, but I don't know, it's mostly preference. But if on YouTube we get more interaction, we've already gotten a couple comments. I don't know if you've even checked, Jared, but
I have not.
We've gotten a couple comments of feedback, which is cool. And I replied to one of them. So that's fun. We're getting more engagement, which is cool. But I also encourage engagement on Facebook. That's kind of why I made it, just so it's like, it's kind of an easier platform to discuss with people on. As far as comments,
Facebook's just boomer stuff, man. I could be wrong.
I don't know. I don't use Facebook that much.
I've never used Facebook.
But as far as like communities and discussions, I think Facebook's a good spot for it. So if you have any comments, I'd say leave them on Facebook or YouTube. I get notifications and stuff on there. So anyways, enough of that announcement. We'll just jump right into the episode. I don't know. What do you want to talk about today, Jared?
God damn it.
This is the first time that we haven't like... I'm not putting it on you.
I know. I was so relying on you to be like, I got something to talk about.
Okay, here, I will. Because here's something I failed to mention for the past 2 episodes. So on episode 2, I was talking about how I was getting anxiety and I didn't know what it was from and stuff like that. And I meant to talk about it on episode 3. Didn't end up coming up. I didn't feel like it was appropriate to shoehorn in. Same with episode 4. So this time,
yes,
I'll just start it out and we'll go from there. So what I found out about what was causing my anxiety, and I haven't felt it for about a week or 2 weeks, I think. It was classified as health anxiety.
All right.
And that's why I would go in those spirals, is because I would feel a generic symptom of anxiety.
Okay.
Then it would freak me out. And then I'd look it up. And then I'd find out that's a symptom of something else. And I'm like, oh, well, what are the other symptoms of that? And then I'd read them. And then that'd give me more anxiety, which would then increase my symptoms. And then I'd be psychosomatic and in giving myself other symptoms. And then I get more anxiety. And then it would be a loop for like a day or 2.
Mm-hmm.
But then I watched this video of this doctor. I don't remember the name. It was on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's like a 20-minute video. And the doctor, she was literally just saying like, it's a normal thing. It's like a minor form of hypochondria, where people with severe hypochondria are the ones who are like, they think it's called hyper monitoring your own body. And you start being hyper aware of all of your symptoms.
Okay.
And you then like freak yourself out because you're monitoring every little thing that goes on in your body.
Yeah.
And then you just freak yourself out, and then that can cause insomnia or whatever. But basically all this to say, like, I figured out that's what was going down. And ever since like knowing that's what it was. Like, all it took was me understanding, like, oh, okay, I'm doing this to myself. Like,
Yeah.
at night, my allergies kick in, which stuffs my nose up, and then it makes it harder to breathe. And then I would get my head like, oh, I can't breathe. Oh, I'm taking too deeper breaths. And then, like, I get anxiety. But now it's like, oh, my nose is clogged. I'm going to breathe through my mouth until my nose isn't clogged. And then I don't get anxiety, and then I go to sleep.
One thing that I like relating to nose clogging.
Yes.
I've noticed that when I lay a certain way, my nose will get clogged. But then if I readjust it, then I breathe
if
normally.
If you sit up or something?
Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's weird because I never really noticed that. But then I also wanted to talk about your whole YouTube thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was thinking about it, and I've thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't that, I guess it's not crazy because we're so used to it. But I mean, you just looked up a doctor telling you this information that they spent God knows how long researching. Like not only that, but also probably knowing a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
And so you were able to tap into like a very specific, specialized part that they spent some time on.
Right.
That they're immediately able to convey to you.
And it's just access to me for free.
Yeah, basically it's free. Like, because I was thinking about it for a lot of stuff that I'm doing or learning.
Yeah.
And because thinking about it before the quote unquote internet, before we were like self-conscious type of deal, before the internet got big, it's like, how did people get really good at things without having the ability to look it up?
Right. And that's where you could argue we're in a position of privilege as our generation, but I wouldn't look at it that way. I'd look at it as just the development.
Yes, and that we kind of talked about this before, where you know how I said this is like our first episode or second, where I said like, you know, the richest king, during like the fucking 1400s does not live better than someone who is like a lower class. Like they have a better life than the richest king would. Because like you start getting into crazy stuff where it's like, oh, you got this disease and we're not really sure how to take care of it because everyone that's got it dies from it. Because, you know, you
kind of an ironic statement there, Jared.
What'd I say?
No, it's just funny because you're talking about a foreign disease that we don't know how to treat and people are dying from it.
Well, okay, I don't know what they did to Trump. Speaking of President Trump.
Oh, okay.
I'm not being political here or anything.
Is this a conspiracy?
No, I guess. Like, he's like 73? 74?
I couldn't tell you. He's in his 70s.
He's in his 70s. He tested positive. I think he showed symptoms from what I remember. Pretty sure he did.
Yeah, I haven't followed it too closely. I just know that it came out.
Like, I just know he spent like a couple days in the hospital, and now he's feeling better, up and going.
Oh, here's a, I wouldn't say it's a controversy, but it's a big thing right at like today and like the past couple of days. The big thing about that whole situation is that he has recovered so fast.
Yeah.
And he's talking like, no one be scared. It's not a big deal. I just got over it so fast. But then people's rebuttal to that is, yeah, well, not everyone has the same options as you when it comes to healthcare and science.
Well, see, now that's why I'm like, I just want to know like what the hell happened there, because like as you just said, because from what I understand from the scientists that I follow, the at-risk age group is like 50, and then it gets
worse,
increasingly worse at like, I think it's like 70 is the landmark, so it's like 50, 70 is how they have it, and then it's below that, probably fine. Yeah,
depending on your health situation.
Yeah, you know, if you're a diabetic, really fat, overweight, and you have other pre-existing health conditions,
issues, or immune system issues,
like you're going to have a harder time fighting it. But so just for me looking at it from my viewpoint, a guy that's 70. You know, that's old.
Trump is old. And not to offend any of our 70-year-old
yeah, of course not. Of course
viewers, not. But
still got to skip in his step. But just hearing that, I think from whatever source I heard it from, they described it as something, not a herbal cocktail, like a something cocktail that they injected into him, and now like he's fine.
But I think the thing, and this is literally, I've only seen this on like one thing someone said, so this could be completely wrong, but this is hearsay. But
Yeah.
Apparently, like from what I saw, someone mentioned that he was using like, or he was basically testing out this thing that was yet to be FDA approved.
Okay.
But it worked. But there's no basis to that. But also, like, even if that is the case, no matter your political views, if they found something that worked so effectively on someone who is at such a high risk,
mm-hmm.
I'm really hoping we hear about it soon because like that could be exactly what we need.
Yeah. And like, see, when it comes to conspiracy theories,
mm-hmm.
like sometimes I feel like it's just like kind of like you start sounding like a schizophrenic or like what's real, what's not.
Oh yeah. And make you sound crazy.
Yeah. When we start talking about vaccinations, now I'm not an anti-vaxxer.
Yes.
Because this idea of vaccinations has existed, like I think since George Washington. I forgot what disease it was.
Oh, interesting.
But he had all of his men. I don't remember what disease it was, but there was like one guy who had it. And he had a cut or pus or something, and he's like, I want you guys to take some of that stuff and like rub it into you so you get sick and fight it off.
Was it weed?
Yeah, it was weed. And I remember the idea of that has existed for a long time, of giving people a dosage of
smallpox.
Smallpox.
I just looked it up. Yeah.
And so he gave his people smallpox so that they could develop some sort of immunity to it, mm-hmm. rather than, because from what I understand also, like it's an amount. It's not like, it's like the amount of the disease from what I understand. No, I'm no fucking scientist.
Wait, sorry. I'm a little lost. So what's the amount of the disease? Like the severity of it, or like overcoming it?
From what I understood, it was, and this could be completely wrong, because they were talking about it. I think this was Brett Weinstein,
mm-hmm.
because there's been cases where it was a king again.
Yeah.
And they were practicing the same thing. And supposedly what happened is that, so he was trying to make his son immune to whatever disease was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understood, it was like they gave him too much, which I don't know how that works.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, here I have some insight on this. I don't know, not your specific situation, but as far as like the concept of vaccination is, you inject enough of the disease for the body to recognize it's there, but not enough to endanger your system.
Yes.
And then that in turn kicks on your immune system to then create antibodies to fight this specific virus. And then when your body gets hit with a full dosage of it, it has the antibodies created and it knows how to create those antibodies and can act faster on the virus before it spreads too much.
Yeah.
So the entire point is to be preemptive. So when you get a flu shot, you're getting injected with a minor strain, is what it's called, of the disease, just like a blueprint essentially of the disease. So your body's like, okay, now I know how to fight this thing. And then when you get it, your body fights it. And that's how we fight viruses.
Okay.
Infections is different because you then need antibiotics, which boost your immune system,
which is
to then fight it.
Bacterial.
Yes. And those go away after your body beats it. Viruses always live in your body, but the reason they stop affecting you is because you've got the antibodies to constantly be fighting it. And then you show minor symptoms such as fever or whatever.
Well, because I know then they also go through they go dormant is what they call it. They go dormant.
And then you can beat them. They go dormant, and then they can rise back up at a bad time and cause even more issues because either the virus has evolved or your immune system has weakened to the point where you can no longer fight the virus off.
See, I'm just saying, one, I swear to God, viruses came from outer space.
Oh, viruses are alien. But we were talking, and this brings me on to the other thing, but we were talking a couple days ago about how an alien.
Okay, yes.
An alien virus / parasite, I know they're not the same thing, but like
life form,
an alien disease, if it were to come to Earth, wouldn't be able to match up with our DNA unless it originated on Earth, mutated, came back, then infected us, because it has to be able to fit our DNA strands / have the right keys to open the doors to our cells, essentially.
See, I remember learning like the correct terms for all of that stuff in biology, but that has left my brain because I know of like the stuff that you talk about, but just looking at the anatomy, because I know different viruses look different, but you could put them into categories.
Yeah, there's different types.
Yeah, and there's the one that literally looks like a little robot, and the whole point is that it has its DNA, and then it injects its DNA into you so it could survive.
Yes.
I'm like,
and reproduce.
Yes, I was like, that little fucker's sneaky.
I know,
and he looks like a robot.
The craziest thing about those little things is like they're all code.
Yeah,
it's like biological code, which is interesting that we have then created artificial technological code.
Yeah.
And that makes me wonder, and I'm sure this could just be Googled and we can figure it out, but it's better to speculate on, like, I wonder if the basis of writing code came from the idea from what we see in nature with like single-celled organisms.
Well, where even our DNA is a code.
Exactly. And we're made up of code. Like, we're built by little machines that have a predetermined code. And then you copy and paste the code, you lose data as you get older, and then your body starts to fail.
Like, so this is going back to, I guess, a code. Like, so I was watching some sort of cat video on YouTube.
Classic.
And I guess it's interesting. Like, we just simply say, oh, that's like a biological, like, it's, what do you call it? It's in your genes.
Oh,
like, for a cat to just instantly know to pick up a kitten by its scruff. Like,
instinctual.
Instinctual. Like, it wasn't taught that directly. Right. It just knew to do it.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Well, like, because I was going to talk about this. I talked to this with my biology teacher. We were talking about bacteria, and bacteria is pretty cool in my opinion.
Yeah.
And
totally rad.
Yeah. Well, like, so bacteria also evolves. Like, you can see
it mutates and evolves.
Yes, it mutates and it evolves, and then we get back to like it's an adaptation if it's a good thing because it keeps surviving.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And so with bacteria, like, we can develop multiple like antibiotics to try to fight it off, but then over time, and they call these super bugs. It's like, well, every time we throw a solution, it just adds to its, what do we call, pool of knowledge, or what the fuck you want to call it.
It keeps learning.
And
then we have to learn back.
Yes. And it's like, is it mutating too fast where it's like we're running out of ideas here now?
Well,
where
stop
it's like
throwing stuff at it. That's the biggest thing.
And so now it's like classified as like a super bug or whatever, where it's just like,
we can't fight it with modern medicine.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we'll figure something out. But like, what's interesting though with bacteria is that, like, because like you have like a petri dish, and you could have all of the same bacteria, and then like one of those out of chance will mutate, and it'll be whether for good or for bad. And I talked to my teacher, and I said, like, because we're talking about like communication, and she's like, yeah, like bacteria actually do communicate with each other. And so you could have one bacteria that is resistant and is surviving,
and then it replicates itself,
and then it could communicate to other bacteria to give it its strand of DNA. And so now they become like it, and they become immune, and then they also start spreading it because they're communicating.
Well, that's how a lot of cures are found, is by taking viruses or bacteria and basically mutating it to only attack one type of cell. And then you inject it in the body, and then it goes and attacks the thing that it's trained to attack, and then it dies once it attacks. And that's kind of where, from what I know, that's the direction that a cure for cancer is headed, is where they found, what disease was it? It was like,
is it the people like in Sweden or whatever? Like,
it's like, one of the more scientifically advanced. I mean, yes, America is extremely advanced, but like, I don't think we put as much effort into science as many other countries. I think we give ourselves a little too much credit. But anyways, and maybe it's a whole collaborative thing, but essentially they train, like, it's like this really deadly disease that can then be manipulated and mutated into something that can help fight cancer.
Yeah.
And since it's such a powerful disease, they can have it target cancer cells and like tumors and stuff and just attack it until it's all completely gone out of the system and dead. And then your body just gets rid of the thing that was initially injected into you. And then that's where it's headed. They just haven't figured out how to get it so specific to where it can, because the problem they run into is it's like, yeah, it'll target cancer cells, but it also targets other parts of your body, and then it ends up just doing the damage anyways.
Yeah. But anyways, going back, like, so looking at us as a society, like, let's just say we're back when we were cavemen, like, we would communicate to survive. We would work together.
Right.
And we'd go a step lower, like, you got your honeybees.
And they
communicate and they work together.
Right. And then you got your ants.
They communicate and they work together. And then, you know, whatever form of life works together, like, they just do it. And then for me, again, I just thought it was interesting to go back to a single-celled organism.
Yep.
That's as small as it gets, number one.
Right.
Like,
well,
a single-cell organism.
For living. Yeah, okay, never mind. Got it.
So a single-cell, like, that's as small as it gets. And for that, like, because it's where, like, when thinking about life, and maybe this is where you can be like the difference between like a philosophical and scientifical, like, scientifically going to our single cell organisms, like, they're communicating and they're literally like built to survive is the whole point, which I'm like,
just to reproduce.
Yeah. I'm just like, I find that fascinating, kind of crazy.
Because it's a constant for all life.
Yeah, well, it's like...
Yeah.
And then also in terms of community, like, they're not physically talking. It's just... They just do. Is what I find fascinating about it. Because with us, we would communicate. It's like, yeah, we're on the same page. We don't want to die type of deal.
Right.
But with the bacteria, kind of going back to, like, I guess the cat thing, where it just knows to pick a kitten up by its scruff.
Yeah.
Same thing as bacteria. It's just... I guess it's just life was like, hey, let's just survive.
Yeah.
And so...
It's that predetermined code.
And it's
fascinating.
It's crazy.
So here's one of the questions I almost posed to you the other day, and then I was like, I'm going to save this for the podcast.
All right.
It's a really good one.
I remember this, actually. Yep.
So...
Was this Friday? Yeah.
Yeah. If you were to time travel, and you could only time travel once.
Yeah.
And it was possible, and there were like... no like physical drawbacks or whatever, all of those out the window. If you could get one free pass to time travel, first part of the question is, would you go forward or backward?
Okay. So for me, I'm just going to say, I'm going to go forward, but let me explain, because my knee-jerk reaction was to go backwards.
Right.
So it would be awesome, in my opinion, to go back in time. Just to see how it was like, because all that I have reference to what it was like then is from history, from books, from people explaining it, from a lecture.
Yeah.
Like
word of mouth. And sometimes pictures.
Yeah. I don't physically see it.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, I would love to go back in time and see fucking dinosaurs. I would love to see that.
Oh my God.
See, that's something I'd love to do. Like, how different the earth was then, like, seeing all these fucking huge ass plants, like
insects that could probably kill you as soon as you step out of the time machine.
Like, oh, that insect is as big as me.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they're gonna look at you like, what the? That's a huge mammal, like, because mammals at the time were tiny. They were just rodents.
Yes, yeah, because
this is before Ice Age times where mammals got huge.
Yeah, everything was mainly like reptile or whatever.
Reptiles, insects, and then mammals were tiny and they hid in the ground most of the time.
That's how they survived.
Yeah.
And like because again, I would love to go because like there's still some knowledge to be like extrapolated from like it's
But
like
you could never go back.
yes, like but it would be like a personal thing.
Yeah,
Like there'd be
yeah,
knowledge for me to
before you die,
extrapolate
yeah.
because I could be like, how did the dinosaurs die? Like what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
What happened?
What the
like even
fuck
for me
happened?
personally, again,
And then die in the rubble.
Brian Forrester, a scientist I like to follow. I think you call him a scientist. This is the one where I told you and Cameron about, and Shane, like the megalithic objects, where it's like these buildings that are like before the Egyptians.
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
they're so advanced we don't know how they made it. Like they,
How it was even possible.
like because we know Egyptians had bronze tools, and bronze tools are really shitty, like really bad,
really soft.
and so we have had a civilization before the Egyptians, and the Egyptians had bronze tools.
So what's
So we had a civilization that predated the Egyptians, and they were able to make these crazy accurate megalithic objects where it's just like we don't know how they made them. Like it's just like it's like stuff that we would make today. It's like how the fuck did they do that? And like and then there's proof of civilizations coming in afterwards that build on top of them simply by stacking stone. And it's like, okay, there was like some sort of like technological regression or something where it's
something
like
was lost.
where like you've had some weird advanced architecture, and now a thousand years pass or whatever, people find it, and then they're like, we're going to build on top of it, and you could see the difference in craftsmanship. And so like, see, that was something because there's theories, because Brian Forster, again, like from a scientific view, like the ones in Egypt, the buildings there, I've told you, like they're like, the way the remainings are of the buildings before the pyramids, they're like all scattered apart, and he's like, the only thing we have is that it was blown up is the theory, and it wasn't. And so it's like, oh, aliens is what I like to think, but like the most current one is like something to do with the sun, like kind of like a solar flare thing. I forgot what they call it.
Oh, some sort of like event.
Yeah, so like the idea is that it had something, the scientific way, I guess, or the theory on why the buildings look like they were blown up has something to do with the sun. But what I just find weird about it, again, is that there's these megalithic buildings found in Egypt, and then they're also found in Mexico. And it's just
two
like
completely different sides of the world.
Yeah, and it's both advanced craftsmanship that just didn't exist at the time. And so that, like, see, that would be a time where it's like, I would love to go back in time.
But you still choose the future. Why?
Because it's probably way crazier.
I would like to see a world, and this isn't my answer, but this is just an inquiry. I think it'd be interesting. Actually, before I say this, you know what? I'm going to pause because this is the second part of the question. Okay, so you would go forward.
I'd go forward.
By how far and why?
See, that's a hard, like, we could get into technicalities and all this stuff into it. Like, so if I were to go forward, it would be a pretty big leap forward. Okay. Like, not 1,000 years. I don't, honestly.
Even more.
Oh, yeah, way more. So, you've heard of the Kardashev scale? No. It goes up to 3. So the first part of the Kardashev scale is that you fully harness like all the natural resources from your planet. You're able to make them. You're able to make the most from wind, from hydro, from
I heard
solar.
this on the Dyson sphere theory.
Yeah, so that's when you get to phase 2 then on the Kardashev scale, where you harness the power from your sun and like make effective use of your resources from your solar system.
Yeah.
And then the third part is using all your resources from your galaxy.
Oh, that makes me think of the Dyson sphere video I watched, and that blew my mind. That was so cool.
And so for me, like, ignoring, be like, oh, if I sent myself 1,000,000 years from now, and like, let's just say there still is a civilization, I'd be a monkey and they'd like just zap me or whatever. Like, ignoring that.
They would study you for sure.
Like, if I were just to go there, ignoring like the technicalities and all that, I would go really far into the future.
just to see.
Just see how advanced and crazy we have gotten. Because one thing I'm interested, and I kind of like, one thing I'd be interested in, so like our science is science, our math is math.
Mm-hmm.
That's always going to be built upon and further advanced.
Yeah, there's ever changing.
And I'm just curious how that would affect us if us is even a thing that far into the future. Maybe us is gone, it's just robots. Like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
But like, I would just want to know, like, let's just say there still is a us and we're super advanced now. Like, how does our process of thinking work? Do we still have a thing? Do we still have ethics? Is that even
how does society function?
How does society function? Is there morality, or is it just all numbers where it's like, we're going to do this because it benefits us the most from all this number stuff? Like, do you have these, like, are you able to calculate whether something's good or not by like, because like we do have that, like kind of like utilitarianism where you decide what the best thing is by trying to get like what will bring in the most happiness. But like a critique of it is like, could be too many factors to try to weigh in on what makes.
I personally think that we as humans are held back by one of our biggest strengths being our capacity for emotion. And that is like one of the main human traits and qualities, is that we are so deeply connected with our emotion that I personally think we may never reach a well-oiled enough system, because we'd have to sacrifice the emotion that even the most robotic person still has, you know? So like, you'd have to be, like you were saying, very by the numbers, like very much, all right, you're dying because you're not benefiting us.
Yeah.
I don't think we would ever, at least in our current form, I guess it could change with evolution, but I don't think we could ever hit that stage as this
as we currently
species, I guess, unless there were a different branch of humans, potentially. And that was what I was going to say earlier, is like, if I were to time travel, I would also go super far.
Yeah.
But I would see if it was possible, I would try to go past where humans aren't around.
You're going to see our demise.
I want to see what it's like, what happens after humans are gone. Like, if something else takes over, or if the way a lot of people put it is like, well, if we weren't here, the world would prosper. Yes and no. I think the world would just be different, but because wildlife wouldn't exist the way it does, because the wildlife exists the way it does, because our ecosystem is the way it is, because we affect it in the ways we do, obviously. But I think if we were to go past human dominance, I think there would just be something else ruling the earth.
Yeah, see, like, okay, I want to really touch on that.
Yeah.
I told Davis this, and kind of like Karsten, and it came out weird. We're like, what the fuck you talking about? You're full of shit. But so this goes back. So you know how you just said like you want to see like the end of humans type of deal?
Yeah.
Like for me, like
not that I want to see the end of humanity.
Yeah, like you like it's just like what is after us?
Yeah, what's after us?
This was from Terrence McKenna, and like a psychedelics guy.
Oh, okay.
Psilocybin mushroom, stuff like that.
I wonder why you were looking into that.
I don't know. Well, anyways.
Go on.
The government's hiding information from us straight. He brought it up, and I thought it was a good point, and I told Davis this, and Davis gave some answer, but it left me unsatisfied.
Okay.
And maybe there really is like a scientific reasoning why it's like this hasn't happened, but it was like, why now is it something like us emerged from Earth? We've had all these millions of years of life, and
we weren't around.
And at some point, it's just like, I guess there's no need for a human. Like I just don't understand how that works, because you've had all these millions, billions. I don't know
Well, Earth has been around for 4.5 billion years. So like it would be millions.
Okay.
Hundreds of millions.
Hundreds of millions. And you know, I guess there's just time frames because I know like in the beginning it was like the amphibian water stuff. And
so
then
the whole Earth was water, yeah.
Yeah, and then you the Paleozoic or what the Paleozoic era.
Yeah, I don't know the era as much.
I guess it's just but it wasn't suitable for us yet.
No, yeah. So the way I like to I'll let you continue in a minute. I just want to say as far as like those eras go,
yeah.
I think it's just it really truly is survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
And dinosaurs existed and prospered, and mammals were in the minority and struggled to live without very specific qualities. And then it was insects, and then I think it was reptiles. Now it's mammals' turns, and then mammals haven't really been ruling the earth that long.
Yeah,
comparatively.
Well, even like I forgot. I don't think it was a scientist. I think it was like some YouTube channel, but they talked about like. Because you know people like to fantasize like what's the big shark that could live like not the megasaur. Megalodon. People like to think a megalodon's still alive in our oceans, but like a critique of it is like, okay, let's just say the megalodon does exist. The current meta of like everything besides humans is like speed. Like how fast you are to get away from your predator.
The only thing that trumps that is your size and lack of ability to be killed.
Yeah, and but it would turn into a problem if you couldn't even get food. If everything was so fast and out of your reach, because you would just die off.
Right.
You wouldn't survive because everything's too fast.
Depending on your diet, yeah.
And so that's one critique I heard from from people who criticize the megalodon, because like a thing like that probably needs to eat a lot, I would assume.
Enough for us to notice, I'd say.
Yeah, and because the whole point was, from what I understand, like things have gone smaller and faster in order to survive.
More streamlined and stuff.
And so...
and stuff. Wow, how scientific of me.
And so that like those were the critiques of it. But anyways, back to the whole human thing.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe it really was at the time like if you were to plop humans down during the dinosaur age, we would have gone extinct.
Yeah.
You know, like, or maybe there was some sort of like subspecies of what a human could
like
have
Homo
been.
sapien, like, or Homo erectus. And I'm sure they could have, not to say that like, I think Homo sapiens aren't physically capable of surviving in a harsh environment, where Homo erectus was way more physically capable
like,
of surviving.
Even so, like that even has its criticisms, because like you could say our survivability is insane because we live all over the earth, literally.
But we didn't always.
Yeah, well now we do.
Now is
the thing.
But we've also shaped it to fit our specific needs.
Yeah. And
using resources that aren't combated by anything else.
Yeah, like because we could get in that later, because like, you know, because you could start pulling in resources from across the world where you wouldn't have natively.
Right.
But I just found it, and like again, it could have fully been like, because this goes back to the whole like, I don't know if I told, like the Yoda thing, where like a criticism of advanced beings, animals, whatever you want to call it. Like for us, there's like a nurture time where us as babies, like we need someone to look over us. Yeah.
For like 10 years.
Yeah.
Humans are useless for the first 10 years.
Yeah, we're like, where you have a turtle, as soon as it hatches, it goes and does its thing. It walks across the beach.
A lot of times they die by seagulls swooping them up before they get into the ocean. But
like they don't have their, like, they just do it.
Yeah.
But with us, we have like this time period where we need to be nurtured because we cannot live on our own.
Correct.
And then the end result is like this great being, basically. It's like, okay, now that I've taken care of you, you're able to do all this stuff. And so a whole I'm getting so off topic here, but it's okay.
I know we're going like
I'm still remembering my main topic, so it's okay.
Because I still got to talk about where I would go.
I'll make it quick.
Okay.
And so going back to Yoda, his tridactyl species, whatever you want to label it. That's what they call him, tridactyl, because he has 3 fingers.
Oh, so that's what people just call them. They don't have a name.
No, so people just call them tridactyls. But the criticism on like nurturing taking too long is like with Yoda, where it's like the end result is godly, but it takes how many years for you to get to that stage?
Yeah,
where it's like you just get killed as a child.
Oh yeah,
and maybe that's why they're almost extinct, is because like kind of like in a scientific viewpoint, it's just like it takes so long to nurture you. Right. It takes so long to reach that point,
right,
that you just get killed off, and it's just difficult
by things that develop way faster than you.
And it could just be something difficult, because hell, I would imagine, and maybe I'm answering why we couldn't have really existed during the dinosaur times. Like, I can't imagine raising a kid to like 10 years old or however long.
Wow,
as a like a velociraptor, right? Like a group of velociraptors try to kill him, and like a T-Rex comes out. It's like, how the fuck are you going to survive that?
Humans, like the thing that made the only threat to other dinosaurs, is the fact that like they had pretty much everything you needed to survive a wild environment, where they had speed, they had their own weapons on their body. Well, to preface this, as far as our speculation as humans go,
yeah,
there are theories that like dinosaurs look nothing like we think. But like one thing I can get behind is the fact that dinosaurs were completely feathered, because they were basically they're from the same evolutionary line as birds, which I think is really cool. But anyways, back onto what I was saying was, they had weapons, they had speed, they had muscle, they had protective tough skin because they're reptiles. I think the main thing is that they're not what's it called? They're cold-blooded. So it takes them, they're very specific to their environment.
Yeah, like, just like, because Earth back then was fucking crazy, because like, so this is now talking about climate, which I will always defend this. Like, CO2 is not bad for the environment. I'm saying that right now.
Okay.
People pump CO2 into greenhouses for plants to grow faster.
No, so I think the and this is just a small aside, the big argument is that we're doing a double whammy on the environment by having so much CO2 while also getting rid of a lot of the things that use that CO2 to make way for our own shit.
I'd have to look into it again. Like, from the guy I follow, Tony Heller, who's fantastic. From what I remember, like, the Earth has actually gotten more green.
Interesting.
But anyways, and so there was so much CO2 in the atmosphere, and these plants were fucking
massive.
Like, massive. Because the thing I want to think, like, so as you're talking about like the diversity or whatever and all these different types of dinosaurs, like, one of the craziest ones, in my opinion, is the long neck. I don't know the scientific name for it, but like,
oh yeah,
but like when that thing grew to its full potential, like, what the fuck could kill it?
Yeah,
because I think the
speculation, it's like a blue whale.
Yeah, like the speculation would be like the only time you'd kill is when it's a fucking baby, because like.
But it probably took so long to get that.
That'd be a criticism. It would take so long to get to it. But like,
and it has a lot of resources it needs.
Yeah, well, because I'm also thinking then, like, because in terms of calories, like, how many plants does that fucking thing need to eat to fuel itself?
And water. And being near the water, there's the water dinosaurs that
they come up and snatch you.
I think those are the one things that could kill it, because you're taking it into an environment where it physically can't survive, and it can't swim probably. And if it's not big enough to stand up in the water, then it's just going to die. So it's like you pull a whale onto land.
You're like, did they have to drink fresh water or salt water?
That's a good point.
Because if it's fresh water, there's probably nothing in that water that's going to kill them.
Yeah.
But anyway, like okay. I still remember pulling back now. So this is all the way back to my human question, and maybe the answer was like, it could have been the wrong time during all the other times where it's like, that's not the time.
One thing.
Yeah.
Since the plants were so big and there were so many, humans would suffocate because the air would be so full of oxygen that it would poison us and we'd die.
Yeah, maybe like
I know that much.
I just want to keep talking. Like, one thing I've always thought was cool, carnivorous plants. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like,
it is fascinating that like you never think of a plant that can actively do something.
Like, it has its own anatomy if you want it. Like it moves, and the way it moves is like to kill.
I think that's
something.
what's fascinating about plants versus animals is that we live alongside some of the most alien things that we could ever fathom. Like, there's these plants that we understand how they work, but we can't truly get the way they exist. Like, you can be like, oh, well, if I was a lizard, I could imagine being a lizard. So, okay, here's some games can replicate being a dinosaur. They can put you in the eyes, like not always accurately, but like it's fathomable. But imagine playing a game where you're a plant.
You just exist.
You wouldn't see anything.
You exist.
You wouldn't feel anything.
You'd feel that. You feel your insects coming on you, and you close up.
If you had little hairs, you'd feel stuff. But like just playing a game where it's like I'm a tree.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the like I think it was like plants had to be the first. Yeah, plants had to be like the first life forms.
Well, they're the most simplistic.
Well, like
other than bacteria, and I guess
I could be completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's like because I don't think oxygen is like native type of deal. I think
oxygen isn't native to Earth.
Yeah, and so plants had to be the first life forms to convert CO2 into oxygen, and then we had to develop.
They even originated. The first plants were like plankton.
Yeah.
So they were like
something
since
like
the Earth was so like a water ball, it was like the first life I think was like what are they called, microphages or something like that, where it's like they're just like you were saying, single-celled organisms that are essentially just plants and plankton and stuff that eventually mutated enough to like become bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it became plants. And I don't necessarily know how mammals or animals came to be, but I know like it's fairly, since plants are pretty simple in nature, it's easier to tell like you were saying, like they had to be first to then create this oxygen.
And somewhere along the line, just something came arise. It's like, oh, we have this resource called oxygen now, type of deal.
And then bacteria, which then evolved into like, I don't even know.
I think we get into like our Paleozoic stuff now.
Yeah.
We get to fish,
but
and like specifically because like Paleozoic weren't fish; they were like an exoskeleton. Or the fuck? Like I'll show you a picture afterwards. Like,
oh yeah.
Like they look like an exoskeleton. Like it's crustacean. I think is
yeah.
And then from there you start, because like land animals is like the last thing you get to.
Oh yeah, we're so new.
Yeah,
like we're even in modern history, like from the Bible onward, humans still existed for a really, really long. Like modern type humans existed for a super long time before that, and then before that was like pre-modern human, and then it was like Homo sapiens versus Homo erectus, which I watched a whole thing on the difference, and it's really fascinating how we are the only, what would you say, like what, I don't remember the exact like name, but like we're the only type of humans left in the world.
Like Homo sapien compared to
Homo erectus, and there's like six other ones.
Like there's like Cro-Magnon men. There was the Neanderthals, which everyone knows.
Yeah. But, which I think were those Homo erectus.
Yes, they were like short and stubby or whatever, but
no, they were huge.
Oh, I thought they were short.
So the thing about at least Homo erectus, unless Homo erectus and Neanderthals are two different things. I just know that Homo erectus were like big, bulky, but their bones were also big and bulky and kind of fused together in certain spots.
Okay.
So they're way less flexible and they were less fit for nomadic lifestyle.
Okay.
They were way more settlers. And so the main thing that made them die off is during the change of seasons or even the change of climate and the evolution of our environment, they couldn't travel to where it was safe. They couldn't migrate, but Homo sapiens could. So because of the way our legs, our hips, and our ankles and our feet are structured compared to the Homo erectus. But the other thing is Homo erectus or Homo sapien females found Homo erectus males more attractive than Homo sapien males. I think I got that all right. So Homo erectus actually became very intertwined with Homo sapiens, and then we started getting like mixed babies, and that's why now modern humans are like a mix, because we have qualities of Homo erectus while maintaining most of the qualities of Homo sapiens to be called Homo sapiens. But you can see traces of Homo erectus in our body or in our DNA and in our structure, which is like really fascinating to me, because like it's a completely different type of human evolved for a completely different type of lifestyle, which Homo sapiens have kind of turned into nowadays. We're way less nomadic, meaning could there be somehow a resurgence in Homo erectus genes? And I doubt it, but I'm saying like that would be fascinating if I were to travel forward past Homo sapiens, but now Homo erectus rules the world again. Like that would blow my mind. Yeah,
like so going back to what you said of humans not being like Charles Darwin, guy like really kick-started us off on evolution.
Right.
He lived from 1809 to 1882. And during that time, when he was, when he was writing his book, he sailed on a ship, like a wooden ship.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at that, like that was 200 years ago only.
That was only technically at a max human lifespan two generations ago.
Like if you just want to go by the simple 100, like you said. And during that time, he's like trying to figure out evolution. He's on a wooden ship. And another 100 years go by. Soon we're reaching the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, so much has happened in the past 300 years.
Because what is our age called? Because
so we're in the information age.
Information is what they call it. Yeah. Which is just again like because when I was in class learning about that, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like that dude is on a wooden ship going across the world that way.
And about 100 and a half years later.
He was born in 1809 and he died in 1882.
Right.
So like maybe like
so mid 1800s ish.
Yeah. And so like you could just say like 100 years later,
we were already inventing ships.
We're in our Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
And then not even 100 years after our Industrial Revolution, we have entered this.
Well, I watched a video on that, talking about how the reason we're having so many generational clashes, and just cultural clashes and all of this, so much conflict, is because the gap between human advancement is getting thinner and thinner and thinner, where exactly what you're saying, where I don't even know what it was called before the Industrial Revolution, like the age right before Industrial Revolution, but I think it was like agricultural or something. And then we go into industrial. So that was like industrial lasted 60, 70 years. Well, actually, Industrial Revolution I don't think technically started until like 1910s. But
I'm bad at history.
No, it was 1902 or something like that. So yeah,
I'm bad at history.
So yeah, it went from about like or like beginning in 1900s, maybe late 1800s to like the 80s or 90s. And then, so almost 100 years long of an industrial revolution. And then right after that was like the technological revolution.
It's really
and
fast.
And that lasted like 20 or 30 years, if that.
And now we're
already in, we've had two in a smaller amount of time, like two ages.
And see, this probably is explained, like, this then goes back to our king analogy, like, because we're reaping all the benefit. Like, each generation after us will reap the benefit of what we currently have. And it will only get, quote unquote, better from there because there will be more knowledge to
the human nature of improvement.
Yeah, like, for example, like, we have all these scientists, like Einstein's theory of general relativity. Like, we're not recreating that. We're just using that and continuing on with our life.
Right.
And, like, again, the whole point is, like, we're just going to keep building upon what we've already built. And it's like, maybe it just gets faster, faster, and faster. And maybe there will be some weird soft cap where it's like, oh, now we've reached, like, a technological stagnation. Where like, because maybe it works in, like, some weird phase. Like,
I am from purely based on, like, what's kind of come up in my head over this conversation is, like, I think after informational, we're going to be kind of stuck until we can learn to work together to leave the planet.
I just want to go to space, man.
Well, that's the thing is we're never going to achieve that as...
I will become part robot.
From division.
I'm down for that.
And the thing about you being part robot, though, is like you're going to be relinquishing your free will. But
Maybe.
But here's the thing. It's like I think the only way for humans to leave this earth is to cooperate. And if we put all 8 billion minds together, we could do it. I mean, it would cost us most of the resources on Earth, but like that's the point, is to then go from Earth and then harness the power of the sun. And then once you've done that, you can, like you were saying, it goes from a terrestrial level to then a solar system level, where now we're harvesting resources from our entire whole solar system, but we're never going to leave Earth until we stop worrying about the micro level.
Because we're not even at the first level, because we're not maximizing everything efficiently.
We are still in like a primitive age in
like
space.
As we just, like, 200 years ago, we were sailing by boat.
Yeah.
And so...
Oh, yeah. So I guess in terms of like the space age, which is probably the next age, that one's going to be a long gap until like... Because no one cared about industrializing Earth until they caught a glimpse of it, right? Like, I'm sure industrialization could have happened sooner given the right circumstances, but industrialization wasn't as important as like exploring and colonizing.
Yeah, like, and it really is crazy to look how long it took us to get here, because like I'm pretty sure like living a life in Greece in terms of quality probably wasn't that much different than living a life as a Roman, even though time wise it was so far apart. But I think it would still be the same, where it's just like you got a cut on your arm. Sorry. Yep,
you're dead. Throwing you in the pit with snakes and hope it helps.
Yeah. And so as we were just said, then like it wasn't only until recently with the whole Industrial Revolution where we then started popping the fuck off.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like, it just like...
Well, it's a scaling thing. I talked about this 1 or 2 episodes ago where it's like you create... And this actually popped in my head when you were talking about that. When you talk... Or when we... I guess... I think we had the brain power and the resources. Maybe iffy on the resources. I think the Industrial Revolution really kicked off when we started figuring out oil. But I think
started messing around with electricity
and oil and machinery. But I think we could have gotten to that point sooner. But the problem was humans were all like so far apart that like the only way for humans to communicate effectively was within established civilizations such as Europe. And then in the Americas, established civilization wasn't a thing. So then there was way less communication, which means no one was reaping the benefit of the land. But once we transitioned and took over America, and then there was an established civilization, then there was tighter communication, which meant more collaboration, which meant more resources, more development. And then all of a sudden, the things we create, such as trains, allow us to communicate and commute faster and more efficiently, which then means we can get resources from one end to the next, which means we can then spread the technology, which means, boom, everything just builds on itself until we have what we have today. And I think the internet did a similar thing where now it's like, now we're in constant communication. Now we're getting all of this information. Now we're learning so much. Now we're creating things based on that knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think the next step is, so it went from like a country to country level, or like an international, or like within, sorry, international is country to country.
My bad.
Okay. We're going from within one country to then multiple countries communicating to the whole world communicating. Now we need the whole world to come together and collaborate and bring resources from everywhere, bring knowledge from everywhere and information from everywhere, take everything that we built up to now. Everyone can then come together, and then we'll elevate one more time. We'll zoom out and we'll see the Earth. And then we'll probably try something with the moon because we're humans and we are obsessed with it. And it's the closest celestial object to us. And then we'll go, and then we'll zoom out again, and there will be probably neighboring planets and the sun. And then it'll go from that to our whole solar system, and then it'll go. But there's going to be hundreds of years, generations even, before we even can zoom out that far.
Okay, so I'm going to really backtrack real quick because I saw the idea.
Yeah, okay.
So this is still going about life on Earth, okay?
Okay.
And so this is back to Terrence McKenna, the psychedelics guy that I heard this from.
Okay.
He talked about like the interesting thing about humans. Again, it's like we haven't really had something super advanced like us before us. Like, it's like we're at the peak of it. And this is going back. So I remember I told like how bacteria communicates, and it's like, it's just to survive. That's just how it is. It's to survive. And so this is going back to how I kind of told Davis and Karsten this. So like viewing life as a whole, okay? Like just calling life. How Terrence McKenna kind of talked about it from what I remember. He was like, so after the dinosaurs had their huge mass extinction, what if it was life, whatever organism it was, life as a whole, it was like, hey, like something weird happened with the sun. Like we need something to handle this. And so it's like, okay, let's create something super smart so that it can figure out solutions.
It can adapt faster than evolution.
Like maybe whatever life was like, oh, something's bad happening with the sun. Maybe we do need to create life that could potentially leave the Earth because
live without the sun,
because the sun is fucking God knows what.
Yeah. And
so like maybe that's what happened. Like maybe
life as a consciousness itself.
Yeah, like just life as a thing was just like whatever organism that, like, because we could zoom in, it's like maybe some organism was like it evolved, or like I don't, because it's not confirmed that we came from, like, is it confirmed we came from monkeys? I don't fucking know.
There's literally no way to tell where we came from other than like there are studies that can reinforce the evolutionary theory.
Yeah, because like I know we could start, because I know people get into DNA. It's like, oh, we share DNA with like, because like,
we have the same strands as monkeys.
Yeah, we also have the same as like bananas or some shit.
Right.
And like it's just like
certain plants. Like I think all of that is its own discussion. But
yes,
I think I really like the idea you're posing that like life itself is trying to create solutions.
It was like the whole point of it's like survive. And so as you literally just said, like, these dinosaurs where it's like at that time, it was probably the best organism,
Yes.
creature to be roaming that
You didn't
environment.
need smarts. You needed physical aspects.
And then all of a sudden, whatever the fuck happened that took away all of that life, something happened where it's like, okay, well, like what's our next best solution to answer what just happened to everything? Why all the dinosaurs fucking disappeared.
Right.
And so maybe it was why humans emerged, because it's like, all right, this is the solution. You know, go do your fucking thing.
Yeah.
Which like is also weird because it's just like no other fucking animals before us had the whole idea of consciousness. They're just
mammals as a whole group, like mammals themselves are actually smarter.
Yes.
They have better brain power than birds / reptiles. I think they both come from the same line. Birds and reptiles and insects and plants, out of all of the life forms, mammals have the best brain power. But at the time, brain power wasn't what mattered.
Yes,
I mean, it did to survive as a mammal.
We just go back to the thing where like they were rodents. They weren't anything special because again the whole game plan was just to survive your current situation. And again, like
survival of the fittest.
Yeah, and I do believe if we threw a human, because because this goes back to raising a human.
Yeah,
like taking 10 years or whatever. Like you can't fucking do that with a dinosaur.
No,
like. And again, like for all I know, as we said, like some insect's going to come underneath your ground and fucking eat you.
Yeah, there's going to be a giant mosquito that flies up and bites your head off.
It's going to impale you and fly away.
Yeah.
Shit. What did we? So that's what I just wanted to say real quick, and then I wanted to jump back forward, but I don't.
We were talking about how the different ages and how humanity has to work together to move on to the next age, has to communicate.
This might be kind of controversial, and I haven't fully thought it through, but it's what I've been thinking about.
It's okay. It's what we do here.
So, before, before the Incas and the Mayans were exposed to, like, the Europeans, they were closed off geographically. Their culture, how they were, was geologically bounded to what's ever near them.
Right.
And so what they knew is only what they knew.
Yep.
Whatever's around them, because
their world.
They were geographically bounded. And then we start adding in the picture then of people from a different continent coming over and interacting. And so then, maybe these ideas form of like, kind of like nationalism, where it's like, oh, I'm proud for where I come from.
Yes.
And I would say at the time, I think that makes complete sense.
Yes.
Especially if you're like geographically bounded, you're like, yeah.
That's literally all you've ever known your entire existence and generations before.
Yeah, like that's your, what do you call it? Your carbon footprint.
That was your planet.
That's your ancestors, and you carry on that tradition of surviving in their given geological.
It's exactly what
location.
happened if aliens showed up on Earth. It's like literally, we know Earth as our space. It is our planet, and people in that time, their continent, even their like small subsection of the continent, was like, this is my entire world.
Yeah, like you would see, like, this is me, this is us.
Yes.
But then all of a sudden, we start integrating with places all over the world.
Yeah.
And then it kind of seems to switch then, like, nationalism as something as that was kind of geographical.
Yeah.
Because now kind of from what I feel like or how I think is that I think we're going to move away from something that's just nationalist to I'm proud to be an American just because we fought for freedom and stuff like that. I think it would rather more turn into I'm proud to be associated with these ideas,
cultures, and
like, but more specifically, not just the nationality, the geographical location, moreover be like aligning yourself with the ideas behind them specifically, rather than just being a geographical form of it. It's more of being I align with these ideas, because you can have a person in America that hates America and likes the ideas over in Europe. You could have someone in Europe that really hates their situation in Europe and likes how they do things over in America. And from there, you know, you're not aligning yourself with like a geographical location. It's more of, I like their ideas more than the ideas where I physically am, where these people surround me, majority are. Mm-hmm. And so, and I, in my opinion, because I know people will say culture is an important thing and stuff like that, but I just find it more important focusing really on the ideas.
The reason why I think I agree in the sense of knowing why things are the way they are, mm-hmm. and the idea behind why this is a rule, why you should act this way, why these morals are good, why these morals are considered bad.
Not just because.
Not just, well, that's how it's been for the past many years.
And that's a, like, it's, you'd call that like a divine command theory.
Oh, interesting.
And that's, you know, that's how the Bible is set up.
Yeah.
Is under divine command theory, where it's, you listen to what I say because I told you to.
Oh, fascinating. And that's the basis of, I guess, teaching morals.
Well, yeah, like to a certain degree. So you'd call that a duty-based, where it's not the consequence that matters. You're doing it because it's your duty to follow the divine command. That's your duty. So it doesn't matter what the consequence was. Like
you're
when
doing
God,
it because you have to. Yeah,
when God told that one dude, I don't remember his name, to kill his son, like. He was questioning. He's like, I don't want to kill my son, but he's like, but God told me to, so I got to do it.
Yes,
it's my duty. And you know, like, because I know there's like
Abraham.
Yeah, it was Abraham.
I think so.
Okay. But because like I know there's correlation with like the idea, the concept of God and parenting, because when it comes to parenting, a lot of the times, like when a parent tells you to do something, like you want to do something stupid, it's like, no, don't do that. It's like, why? It's just because
I said so.
Yeah, like. They could probably list it out as well,
but they don't think the kid will understand.
Yeah, there's a chance that whatever stupid thing the kid wants to do, it's like you probably won't understand what I tell you, so it turns into a just cause, which then goes back to a divine
but
command.
Then you come into anyways, that's this whole own discussion.
Because then see so this is my ethics class and what I enjoy. Like when we start getting into ethics, there's two main school of thoughts. The consequentialist, mm-hmm. where the consequences mattered, and then the non-consequentialist, where it's a duty-based thing, where you're doing it because of whatever. It's not the outcome.
It's similar to the difference between like fear-based as opposed to the opposite.
From what it seems like through a lot of these past religions, a lot of the societies were set up on a duty-based, mm-hmm. a divine command theory was the mm-hmm. duty, and you would act accordingly to whatever the rules were. And so then I wonder, like, let's just say we have an advanced alien civilization. I'd like to think that they would never act in a non-consequentialist way. They would purely act in a consequentialist way, where they would only view the consequences as the reasons why to do something, which
would mean the removal of laws, right?
It depends.
Or would you consider consequences also consequences from other people?
I would, because I view it as they would be advanced enough to see the consequences, and they would do so accordingly to the consequence. Like for example. Like you could have two people that follow the law. One person doesn't break the law because he knows he'll get in trouble and he knows the consequences.
Reminds me of a little story you told about Singapore.
Yeah, and then you could have one person that does follow the law because it's good to follow the law.
Yep.
And the end result is they both follow the law, but the way they go about it's completely different.
The decision making, yeah.
And so then we could look at it as like, is there a better is one way of thinking better than the other way? Because one guy is simply following the law because he's supposed to, mm-hmm. but one guy is following the law because he knows if he breaks the law, X, Y, and Z will happen.
Fascinating.
And so when I look at an alien and my concept of it, my fantasy of it is like there's really advanced.
Yeah.
I would think they would look at X, Y, and Z and they'd be like, this duty-based shit is bullshit. I don't care about that. What I care, like, I'm not going to do this because X is going to happen. I'm not going to do this because Y is going to happen. I'm going to do this because Z will happen.
Right.
And then I would imagine that would shape how their social interactions would be. They're like, I am going to be nice to this person, not because I was told to be nice, but because if I'm nice to this person, this alien, I could form a connection with them. They could help me out. I could help them out later in life, type of deal.
Interesting.
That's how I think it would be. That's why I'm just curious how an alien would go about things and how they would act. Because maybe I am completely wrong and they could still be super advanced, but have some sort of duty based where it's like, oh, we would never violate life type of like other life forms. Like maybe they do have that.
Yeah, that's the two ideologies of morality versus.
Well, they're both morals,
but it's like,
the way they go about it's just
the reasoning behind each thing. I see.
Yeah, the way they go about it's just completely different because it's both about how you view the right way to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to stuff like that, it's like, in a sense, there's no wrong way to go about it.
Right.
But for me, like, I feel like when you get to a scientific point, because who's the guy in Oregon? Not Charles Manson. Was it Charles? The serial killer that was in Oregon who would like kill all those women.
The Manson murders?
But is it Charles Manson? I don't remember. I don't know. It
sounds right, but let's just say we're iffy on it. If it's wrong, it's wrong.
Okay, there was a guy in Oregon, I think it was, or California.
I think it was California. I think it was Hollywood, because that's what Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is based on.
Okay, yeah. So we're assuming it's Manson.
Oh yeah, it's definitely Manson.
Okay,
I just don't remember the first name.
It would be Charles Manson.
Okay, yeah.
But I think it was. I feel like it's not him.
If only we had a device that could access the
I know,
internet
you just
and
look
confirm.
it up. But anyways, a serial killer.
Yep.
And when he finally got caught, he wrote, he just wrote a thing on why he killed people, and his viewpoint was a kind of like a duty-based viewpoint, the non-consequentialist. He, I think it was something to do with a butcher or something, but the whole point was he compared human life to pig life, and he said, "What's the difference between a human life and a pig life?" Like, that's how we genuinely viewed it from what I remember.
Yeah.
He's like, we kill pigs, blah, blah, blah. For whatever reason. And you can get into like, we kill like for sport, you kill for trophy, you kill for food. Like, there's different reasons why people kill.
Yeah.
And so then he was just so caught up on not giving more value, like, to human life than a pig life. He viewed them as the same. And so then for him, in his mind, he's like,
he didn't have a problem.
Yeah, he didn't have a problem killing these people. But for me, I do have a problem from like a consequence point of view, because like that human you kill will do way more than a pig could ever do. And it's fucking like, like generations of pigs, like that one human will always do more than what that pig could possibly do.
Giving it more value.
Like that human could go on to shape the earth for better or for worse. That will just have more impact than what a fucking pig could have.
Yeah.
And so but that's me viewing the consequences, where it's like, I feel like that's a good example of like why consequences would matter.
Okay.
Looking at that, where it's like, yeah,
not necessarily consequences against the person, but consequences as
not to kill people,
everybody as a whole, as well as on the one person.
Yeah. And so like, because that was just a portion of his like his reasoning or whatever.
Yeah. But
that was the part that stood out to me, because it's like, I would never view a human that way, where like, because I would always value like human life more than honestly any other life form on the earth.
Well, yeah, and that makes sense because that's how we're wired.
Yeah, and like this could also be, it's like some psychological shit where it's like, oh, I don't want to see my own kind killed type of deal.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to see the progression of human life. No one wants humans to go extinct. They want specific people. Well, yeah, but I'm saying like in terms of as an instinctual thing, and people can say, I just wish humans would die. But I don't know if many people genuinely believe that.
I don't think so.
Because it's one thing to say something out of emotion and disdain for like humanity.
Yeah.
But if you brought it to them and said, okay, you're going to kill every single human no matter what.
Yeah.
And then they get to a kid or an innocent person, they're going to be like, wait, no.
Yeah. Also, like,
I don't know.
I like how Stalin said it. He said, like, one life is a tragedy. And they said multiple are like statistics or whatever.
Interesting.
And because, like, I feel like that is like when we would have someone in our inner circle die, that'd be a time of regret and sorrow. Like,
yes.
like genuine. It's like, fuck, I spent how many years knowing this person? Now they're gone.
Right.
But now it's like, for us, I would assume, like, you know, some Middle Eastern civil war that's going on.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, 10,000 people dead.
You're completely detached.
Like, it's not like those 10,000 people dead doesn't harbor the same heavy weight that I feel when one person died within my inner circle.
Right. And it's all a matter of perspective. And it all comes down to we are selfish creatures at heart. And if something hasn't impacted us personally, we tend to view it not as highly as something that would.
Yeah, because I know there's like what I agree with what you said completely. Mm-hmm. Because then I know there's like little like psychological tricks you could play on your mind to feel like, because you could really think about it and sit there and think about those deaths in the Middle East during that civil war, and maybe some light could be shed from that darkness where you're just like, man, you know, like a 6-year-old kid was like blown up because of some civil war, because of crossfire or whatever. Like, you could think of all the bad things. Yeah. And really focus on that and like dig deeper into the thought of the 10,000 rather than just simply viewing it.
Well, yeah. And then you'd feel that emotion.
You would feel that emotion. I would say not to the extent of knowing someone for years.
When you hear this many people died in World War I, people aren't so disturbed at the thought as much as they are, my relative passed away recently. Like,
well, you see, that's a great example.
Yeah.
Because like, people joke about, well, like, not really World War I jokes, but like Nazi jokes all the time, World War II jokes. I even hear people make jokes about 9/11, which is like,
yeah.
But like, it would just kind of, like, there's arguments to that because I think his name's like Tim Kennedy or whatever. He's a cool guy. He's on Joe Rogan's podcast. Mm-hmm. But like, this goes back to what I just kind of said about like feeling emotions that didn't happen in your interpersonal circle.
Yeah.
He said like a great motivation for him, I think it's called Falling Man, which is just like a guy jumping out from one of the 9/11 buildings because he didn't want to burn alive and he'd rather fall to his death. Right. And so what Tim likes to do for like a little mental thing, he's like, whenever he like would complain about something, he's like, hey, that guy who's an American, he made the choice. He's like, I'd rather jump out of this how many story highs building rather than burn alive. And so like that really resonates with him. And he's like, I got to go. Even though that happened in his interpersonal life, that was just something.
Take the inspiration from the person.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to think like, even in their final moments, they still decided to have a choice and a decision as to how they went out and why they went out. And the mere fact that like it's known to this day is like amazing. It's fascinating. And you hear about that with all tragedies, and there's always like the memorable people. And I think the reason people can stomach to make / laugh at jokes about horrible tragedies is because they tend to speak about it in generalizations, from a distance, and with separation. And it's not necessarily that the person doesn't care. It's that I'm not naming one person specific. I'm not calling out and tapping on one specific horrible emotion. I'm saying in general, like a commentary on this situation rather than the people involved. And I think unless it's like a deprecating joke to the enemy of that tragedy, the person who caused the tragedy.
Yeah.
That's the only time people get specific, such as jokes about Hitler.
Yeah.
Jokes about
being a Jew.
Yes. Like a generalization.
Like, it's just...
And I think it's not funny when people like say jokes harmfully against a person, especially publicly.
Yeah, it's when they make the joke, it's like an abstract.
Yes.
It's abstract.
It's funny because it's like it's relatable to everybody in some sense.
Yeah. It's
not
like,
specific to the
person.
Like,
what's so interesting is you're talking about like the whole laughter thing. Laughing, like, and also talking about like deep dark thoughts is another, like, for example, like my mom would always do this. She would see like some starving African kid on TV and she'd be like, she'd feel this, like seeing something so bad like that and be like, oh my God.
Extreme empathy.
And then there'd be this extreme wave of like gratitude, gratefulness, where it's like, oh, like I'm able to take away from that bad thing. It's like,
yes,
I'm great. I'm like, I'm living life right now, you know?
I'm grateful for what I do have. I could be worse.
And so like from something that bad, you're able to take something good from it. And even like during dark times, people are able to laugh. Do you remember the book Night?
Yeah.
So I forgot the guy's name, but in that book, he watched one of like the Auschwitz prisoners get raped by like the block guard or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And he just started to laugh, and that's how he got caught.
Right.
Like because he was like just wandering around or whatever. From what I remember, like he was wandering where he shouldn't have wandered, and then he just saw a girl getting raped, and then his first instinct was just to laugh because it's like for fuck's sakes, he's in Auschwitz.
Yeah,
seeing people die, and then he's like, it's like, here's another fucked up thing to add on top of.
Yeah,
and his first instincts to laugh is like, is it like, because I even know like, because Jordan Peterson talks about it all the time. He's like even a little bit of laughter during like really dark times could really help. It's
healing, and it here's the thing, and this will be my final thought because we are like so over right now. Like
holy shit,
this is gonna be our longest episode, I think, all right, which is fine. But I'll finish it off on this. Is like I find it hard to get offended by jokes. I can definitely find jokes not funny and in bad taste, but it's hard for me to get offended because at the end of the day, unless the intention is very clear that it's not meant to be a real joke. But aside from that, at the end of the day, when someone's intending to make a joke, they're just trying to make people laugh. And no matter how bad of a joke, how not funny a joke is, from my point of view, from my perspective, it's, okay, that was bad in bad taste, but I know you were just trying to make us laugh with shock humor or whatever the situation is. And like you were saying, in dark times, it's amazing what we're willing to laugh at, considering how personal something can be. Yeah. And I think that's the real like craziness of, say, a comedian's job is like, if they can make you laugh about something that you feel terrible about, that's amazing. Yeah. And like your example about this person being in the worst imaginable situation they could be in.
I recommend everyone reads that because like when because
it's a short book.
Yeah, like because when I read, a lot of times I'll become self-conscious and I'll be like, I'm not into it. Yeah. That's why for a lot of stuff that I like to read, like that's why I have like a hard time reading fiction sometimes because I'm like, oh, this is kind of dumb. Yeah. Like I just have like these little critiques and then I completely break my immersion.
I see. You can't suspend your disbelief, if you will.
I can't because I'm like, God, this character's stupid. Like I'm like, what a dumbass. But like when reading Night, there were parts where like I got so into it, I was reading it. I'd go ahead because like we're supposed to stay together and read, be on the same page. But I was like, oh, fuck that. Because I just like, I was so in tune. Enthralled. Well, because like I remember reading parts where like in one part of the book, it was like this younger kid who like did something bad or something and he was to be made an example of. So they hung him, but it didn't snap his neck, so he just sat there choking for like however many minutes.
Yeah.
And like all the prisoners had to like walk up to him and like do something and then walk away or whatever it was.
Right.
And I remember that part. I actually thought I was in a fiction book because of how fucking insane that was.
Yeah.
Because I was losing track of reality because I'm so into it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, holy shit, I forgot that
This
actually
is real.
This is his fucking life story.
Yeah.
That he lived and told the tale of. And I'm just like, holy
Wow.
fuck.
It's like a double whammy.
Yeah, it was a double whammy. Like,
and I think
book.
it's, I don't know, it's interesting on that note of like, I'm going to go back to the joke thing real quick, but the fact that, and I think the humor of the situation, the humor in which that guy was laughing at was that I'm in the worst humanly possible situation I could be in at this time right now. Worst side of the war, worst everything. And it just got worse.
Yeah, like I'm seeing someone get ripped in front of me now.
And now I'm in trouble. Like, and it's just like, I think that as its own thing, that's why it would be funny. But like, and it's just the irony of it. But
yeah,
also like,
is a good way.
to your point about the book is called Night. If anybody missed when we said it earlier. I think it is fascinating that like, it takes these like horrible events and it gets you to the point where you're like, you don't believe that it happened, not in like a disbelief way, or not in like a, oh, this is fake. It's like in a completely like disbelief of like, how could someone go through this?
Yeah.
And I remember there was like this one part, I think when like they were traveling, they had to travel from one camp to another and it was like snowy. And this kid just gets left behind, never to be seen again, because like he gets lost and then he gets trampled and then he's just,
or the guards were too tired to shoot them because they're supposed to shoot them if they couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
But the guards were too tired to shoot people laying on the ground that already died. Like,
right.
And it's just like, because what I take away from that book, like, I think it was a very beautiful book.
Yes.
Like, he did such a great job writing it. And at the same time, like, the whole beautiful book is like, it's all based off of the whole fucked up thing. So it's just like, just crazy. But
so anyways, I think that's all we'll talk about now. I kind of want to talk about, and every time I say, we'll talk about this next time, we talk about it for like 5 minutes and then talk about it.
Maybe we'll expand on that like 2 episodes later.
Yeah. But one of these times I want to talk about like art and how
I would love to talk about art.
Because like, I think that's like a really fascinating topic. But
yes.
Anyways, that's been our extra long episode. I guess it's fitting. It's episode 5. It's going to be the first. It's not technically the first episode on iTunes or Spotify. I guess, but it's going to be the debut episode, I guess. But
yeah.
Anyways, if you have any suggestions, I'd really like it if you left a comment somewhere, whether it be YouTube or Facebook. I don't know if you can leave comments on any of the other stuff. Technically, you could do it on Instagram.
I don't
Twitter,
think you can on Spotify.
Yeah, I don't think you can interact on Spotify. But I know on iTunes, you can leave a rating / review.
Okay.
You could do one. You could do just the rating, or you could do a rating and a review. That would be helpful. I think if you liked it and there's something specific you want to say, hey, I really enjoy this thing about your podcast, I think it'd be worth it to put it on the review on Apple Podcasts / iTunes, which is free on iPhone if you own one. But as well as like if you're on YouTube, like, subscribe if you want to.
Tell a friend.
Yeah, talk about it. Suggest it if it's interesting. And also on Facebook or any of our social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Following us there will give every Friday I post a 1-minute clip from the episode that came out that day, and then you can know when the episode is up. It's 12 o'clock on Fridays, but if you forget, like, it'll show up in your feed.
I wonder if people are still listening at this point.
Yeah, there's a chance they're not. But from what I know, people listen to this in the background. So it kind of just goes until the end. But anyways, I liked this episode. I thought this episode was like very like, it's super sciencey. And our last couple episodes have been very emotional type episodes. So we're going back to like, I think other than our first episode, this is like our first like sciencey one. So like, I thought that was fun. So anyways, you have anything to add, Jared?
I need to get a Star Wars shirt. I'm looking at
I know,
yours,
you're looking at my Star Wars shirt.
I don't have one.
Well,
I don't have a single Star Wars shirt.
This is like my second Star Wars shirt.
I just need to get
Anyways, one of these we'll make a whole separate Star Wars podcast, and we'll just talk about nothing but Star Wars. Anyways, thank you for listening. Interact if you can /will/want to, and bye bye.